Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am Catherine Cook. I'm a board certified sexologist and a perimenopause educator and coach. And I have been in this industry for over 20 years. I'm very passionate about educating and empowering women and couples about what's going on in their body. And in more recent years, I have transitioned to focusing more on what's happening in midlife as I and many of my clients have transitioned into midlife and we're like, what is happening right now? So, if you've got questions of your own, you're in the right place today. Hopefully, I can answer some of those. And perimenopause is it's one of those subjects that literally affects half of our population, but we don't talk about it. It's not a thing that we like really hear. Like I will say our generation is starting to get better. We are actually talking about it, but I feel like it's been recent. So I love that more and more research is coming out, more and more people are talking about it because it's just such an important thing that affects millions of us. And there's just simply not a lot of accurate information out there. So I hope to correct that a little bit for you guys today. So I just wanted to again reassure you that if you have felt like things are just like weird in your body in midlife, you're in the right place. So before we get into the science though, oh, uh-oh. All right, hold on. Here we go. Oh, come on. Sorry, guys. What happened? There we go. Okay. Before we get into the science, I just want to take a moment to kind of meet you where you're at. So let me know in the chat, raise your hand if any of these things look familiar to you. You've walked into the room, right? And you're just like, why am I here again? Or you're waking up at 3 a.m. and suddenly you are thinking about literally everything that is going on in your life, or that one thing you said that, did they take that the wrong way? Did I say something weird? Right? Like you're fascinated like with everything and you're like, oh, fixated on it. Or you're hot or you're freezing and everybody else is like, what are you talking about? Feels good in here, right? Or maybe your emotions have just been like, kind of all over the place. Or your cycle, you can't track it anymore. It's light, it's heavy, it's 8 days long, it's 42 days long. Like you just never know what's actually happening. Or you've actually Googled, am I going crazy? Right? If any of those apply to you, I just want to reassure you, you're in the right place. Oh, goodness, wrong way. All right, here we go. Again, I'm a professional, guys. All right, so let's define our terms about what actually perimenopause is. So sometimes perimenopause and menopause get used interchangeably, but technically, perimenopause is the transition period up to actual menopause. So that's what kind of surprises people is that perimenopause can start in your mid 30s and it can last anywhere from 2 to 12 years. The average time frame is 4 to 8 years. So, what's driving all of this? It's the fluctuation of estrogen and progesterone because they don't just decline steadily, right? That would be easy if it just suddenly kind of went, or not suddenly, right? But just slowly did this. No, no. Instead, they go, that's what they do. They swing erratically during perimenopause. That erratic fluctuation, that's what causes most of the symptoms that we're going to talk about today. So it's not just that you're getting older, okay? You don't have to just like deal with it. Your hormones are changing and your body's reacting exactly as it should. So, oh gosh, wrong way. All right. We're gonna get this by the time I'm done, guys, I promise. All right, so one of the biggest barriers to getting support here is getting accurate information. So in this space, there is a lot of misinformation, and so I want to clear up some of that. Again, you might have been told that you're too young to be in perimenopause, so you don't have to worry about any of that until your 40s. But as we just talked about, that can actually start happening in your mid 30s. You might have heard that hot flashes are the main symptom. there's actually 70 plus documented symptoms of perimenopause. You might have been told that HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is dangerous. And that fear is based largely on a flawed 2002 study that used synthetic hormones that were given orally. Today's bioidentical options are far better understood and for most women, remarkably safe. And if you've been told to just push through it, just get through it, I want to challenge that. Things like childbirth are natural too, but natural doesn't mean untreatable and just deal with it. Also, like thinking that your doctor will bring this up when it's time, no. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you have a fantastic doctor, perhaps that will be the case. But in general, you are going to have to advocate for yourself about perimenopausal symptoms, hormone therapy, because most physicians have had less than 4 hours of training on actual menopause. So think about the sheer number of years that doctors go to school, right? It's years and years. 4 hours of that or less might be about actual perimenopause or menopause. So you have to often know what to ask for and advocate for yourself. And sometimes you actually even have to like maybe change doctors if you're not getting the results that you want. So I want to normalize that for you that like this might be a process and we want our doctors to know everything, but they simply just may not because they're also behind on their education. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the hormones that are behind all this. So we have to understand kind of what's happening biochemically so that we get kind of the bigger picture. So the big three are estrogen. So estrogen is our multitasker. It helps influence our mood, memory, sleep, skin, our vaginal health, our bone density, and our heart health. And in perimenopause, it fluctuates wildly before it starts to decline. Then progesterone. That's your calming hormone. It helps support sleep, regulates your cycle, acts as a natural anxiety buffer. And here's the key: progesterone drops first, often years before your estrogen does. So, this is why so many women experience new onset anxiety and sleep issues early on their perimenopause journey. And then testosterone. So, this one, it's often thought of just like a male hormone, but we also have testosterone naturally occurring in our bodies. So, this plays a crucial role in libido, energy, muscle strength, and confidence. It declines gradually and is frequently overlooked entirely by conventional medicine as far as women are concerned. Also, just a note on that, you'll hear me say women throughout this presentation. I just, for simplicity's sake, am using that as an umbrella term for anyone that is female bodied or an ovary owner, but women is just an easier term to use throughout. Okay, so those are our hormones. Let's talk about a little bit more about these classic symptoms that we have going on. So we've got the hot flashes, the night sweats, and those are happening because your hypothalamus, which is your internal thermostat, is misfiring in response to those estrogen fluctuations. That sleep disruption, it's primarily driven by the progesterone declining. That 3 a.m. wake up that we talked about, that's hormonal. Irregular periods, they're one of the hallmark signs. Again, your cycles may become completely unpredictable. I've had clients who told me that they used to be regular 28 days. They could time it down to the hour of when their cycles were going to be. They knew exactly like day one was going to be light, day two was going to be heavy, day three was going to be light, or whatever. They knew exactly what was happening. It was super predictable. And now they're getting older, they're in perimenopause, approaching menopause, and suddenly they just had a period 8 days ago, and then here they're having a period again now. Or they're having spotting, which isn't quite enough to use anything, but they shouldn't be having anything. Or like they're going through like a tampon an hour because the flow is so heavy. Like that is a thing that is very common during this period, just completely unpredictable. Mood changes. So, especially anxiety and irritability, those often peak in the week before your period because that's when hormone shifts are the most dramatic. Weight changes and fatigue. They round out this list. The exhaustion in particular is not just tiredness, it's a bone deep depletion that sleep alone doesn't fix. These are all very real, very common symptoms. You're not being dramatic when thinking that these things are a struggle for you. I just want to reiterate that. All right, now let's talk about some of the less classic symptoms. These tend to be some of the big ahas for my clients when I'm talking to them because these are also perimenopause, but they don't get near the talk time that some of those other symptoms do. So, again, the brain fog and your memory lapses, the new anxiety, the dry eyes, itchy ears, joint pain that suddenly just came out of nowhere, heart palpitations that maybe sent you even to a cardiologist, but there's not really an explanation because they're not consistent. The crawling skin sensations, or maybe constantly feeling like, is there a hair on me? I've got something on me. Where is it? But there's no hair. You can't find it. Changes in your teeth or gums are actually very common. I myself just experienced that recently. I had an emergency trip to the dentist because I was suddenly having bleeding gums and had not had that issue before. And again, basically, we determined it was hormonal. Um, Having electric shocks prior to having that hot flash onset. Again, loss of your libido, changes in arousal, allergy changes. I never had allergies as a kid, but I have struggled with allergies the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That could all be perimenopause related. So if you've ever felt dismissed by yourself or by a doctor with some of these symptoms, this is your validation. You're not imagining this. All right. So I want to reiterate that your brain is not broken. I want to spend a moment here on the cognitive and emotional symptoms because these are the ones that tend to scare women the most. So, estrogen is neuroprotective. It helps support memory, focus, processing speed. When it fluctuates, you get cognitive cloudiness or what we call brain fog. It's biological. It's not laziness, it's not early dementia, it's not a weakness. Progesterone, it has that calming effect on your GABA receptors in your brain. When it drops, that natural anxiety buffer disappears. And as we talked about before, some women develop anxiety for the first time in their lives, or maybe they've struggled with anxiety before, but suddenly they feel like they need to increase their medication, like they just can't get a handle on it. Again, hormonal. And because the brain's serotonin system is estrogen sensitive, mood disorders, they seem to just suddenly come out of nowhere. Maybe you feel more depressed and you've not really had that feeling before. Again, that can all happen because of these fluctuation. The good news is that all of these symptoms are temporary and they're treatable. So with the right support, nervous system work, nutrition, and possibly hormone replacement therapy, cognition improves and your brain resumes its normal functioning. All right, here are the root causes. And I feel like these aren't necessarily talked about enough because, yes, hormones are involved, but all of these other things are root causes. So, symptoms aren't the problem here, they're a message. So, we have to figure out what's driving them. Chronic stress and unresolved trauma, they elevate cortisol. That disrupts every single other hormone downstream. Poor sleep creates a vicious cycle. You've got bad sleep, which worsens hormonal balance, which worsens sleep. So hormones go crazy, sleep is bad. Hormones go crazy, sleep is bad. Then the hormones are worse because the sleep is bad, and it's just this vicious, vicious cycle. Diet-driven inflammation, gut imbalance, and toxic exposure through plastics, molds, pesticides, those all amplify your symptoms. Because as your estrogen declines, your body's natural detox capacity also declines. Nutrient deficiencies, particularly in magnesium, vitamin D, and B vitamins, they're extremely common in this phase of life. And blood sugar dysregulation becomes more pronounced as estrogen decreases our insulin sensitivity. So you may find that eating things that you've eaten your entire life suddenly bother you more than they did before. So Understanding these root causes is empowering because most of these can be addressed in one way or another. All right, our master switch is our nervous system. If I had to name the single most important concept for optimizing your health during the menopause transition, it would be this: regulating your nervous system. When your body is stuck in fight or flight, hot flashes worsen, sleep tanks, your anxiety spikes, your body cannot heal what it's still defending against. But when your nervous system feels safe, heart rate variability, or HRV, improves, cortisol lowers, and hormones begin to stabilize. Safety is the foundation of healing. For those with a trauma history, your stress baseline was already elevated before perimenopause came in and added its weight. This isn't weakness, it's physiology. Simple tools like having a no screen morning or even just 10 minutes after you wake up with no screens. I know a no screen morning can seem unrealistic. So, limited screen time out in the sunlight, getting out in the sun like as soon as you can after waking up actually helps set your circadian rhythm. So, actual sunlight, breath work, laughter, 528 hertz music. All of those have measurable effects on your nervous system. This is not just self-indulgence. It's not selfish to take time to do these practices. It's medicine for your body. And by the way, the 528 hertz music, Apple Music, Spotify has all kinds of free playlists for that. So that's a great one for helping regulate the nervous system. And we are definitely going to talk about the nervous system more later in other webinars like this. All right, food as our first medicine. So food is also really important because it's not just fuel, it does act as medicine during the perimenopause transition. You really want to emphasize whole, anti-inflammatory foods, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, berries, fatty fish, avocado, nuts, seeds, olive oil. You want to reduce the things that drive inflammation: refined sugars, processed foods, vegetable oils, and alcohol. Even in moderate amounts, these can disrupt sleep and raise cortisol. Blood sugar stability is foundational. Every single symptom of perimenopause is made worse by blood sugar swings. So, a low glycemic, protein rich, fiber forward approach is the formula. Let me address this for a second, too. Um, I often joke that perimenopause sometimes feels like a full-time job, tracking the sheer amount of fiber you need in a day and the amount of protein that you need in a day. Not to mention the water intake that we ideally are getting as well. It doesn't have to feel like that. Sometimes just switching small daily habits in what we eat, though, can really have a profound effect. So I want to point that out. And as far as your vegetables and fruits, Google the Dirty Dozen. Ideally, if you can purchase organic for those, which we're going to talk more about later, that is very helpful. Again, those particular ones tend to have the most impact when purchased organic, but um, just again, watching what you eat. And I want to address the alcohol too, because alcohol is one of those, a lot of us like love to have beer or a glass of wine or a cocktail. And if you want to drink, drink. Some tips are, though, that if you're going to drink during the day and try to minimize it. Because during the day has less impact on like your sleep and can help your blood sugar get like regulated more by the time you go to bed, which helps with sleep. And again, your body just doesn't process alcohol now like it used to. And there are also some really fantastic NA options out there. So I've yet to find an NA wine that I like, but that's because I'm a dry wine drinker. Sweet wine drinkers, there's a lot of great NA wine options. But NA spirits, I've had some really fantastic ones, and several NA beers and ciders that are also really good. So if you still feel like you want a drink, but not necessarily the alcohol or the blood sugar swing that goes with it, an NA option can be a good idea. So I'm not here to tell you not to drink ever because I understand for some people that's just, it's part of who they are. It's how they have fun. It's how they socialize. Maybe just change how or when or what you're drinking. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about moving. Okay, so movement becomes a non-negotiable in perimenopause, but more is not always better. Our body needs a different approach now. I do feel like we, especially as a younger generation, were brought up as cardio is king. Oh, I got to do all the cardio, 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 cardio. And unfortunately, in perimenopause, that's not necessarily like the case. So strength training becomes essential now. It helps build muscle, protects bone density, and it directly counteracts the sarcopenia, which is muscle loss that accelerates after 40. I, for instance, really wish that I had known this previously because I just started lifting in the last year and I'm 46. I've probably already lost bone density because I'm 6 years over 40 and I just started lifting. So I really do wish I had realized the importance. I would have started lifting when I was younger. Cardio does support your heart health, your mood, and your maximal oxygen uptake, which is also known as a VO2 max. Those are all key as longevity markers. So, walking, cycling, swimming, find what you enjoy. It doesn't have to be running. Um, Also, mind body movement like yoga, Pilates, and Tai Chi, they're medicine in motion. They help calm your nervous system and reduce inflammation. And HIIT, high intensity interval training. When your cortisol is already elevated, too much high intensity work actually can backfire. Again, I feel like that goes along where we were told, like, do HIIT, do cardio, do all of this stuff where you just get hot and super sweaty. That doesn't necessarily work when our nervous systems are already like, ah, right? And then we throw some HIIT in there or some really intense cardio, they have a harder time recovering from that. And then again, that impacts sleep, anxiety, all of those things. So I'm not telling you not to do HIIT because I do actually enjoy some HIIT workouts. You'll just want to limit it to 1 to 2 times a week. And that is very dependent on maybe your own HRV and your own VO2. So, the overarching formula here is consistency over intensity. 10 minutes a day beats a single 60-minute session once a week. So, don't beat yourself up if you can't get to the gym, and do an hour workout every day or 2 hours of workout. Taking a 10-minute walk after you have dinner is a place to start and will help. So, consistency. All right. And of course, because I'm me, we're going to talk about intimacy because we know that this is a thing I'm very passionate about. And perimenopause significantly affects sexual health and intimacy. And again, I feel like this isn't a thing that gets talked about quite as much as it should. So, vaginal dryness and tissue thinning, known as GSM or genitourinary syndrome of menopause, is extremely common and very treatable. Daily moisturizers, lubricants, and local estrogen therapy are safe and highly effective for treating that. Decreased libido is often driven by declining testosterone. Systemic HRT can help restore libido for many women. Changes in arousal time and pain during intercourse are also common. You may need more warm up than you've ever needed before, and that's okay. Your body is changing. So just know like a quickie may not necessarily work for you like it once did. You might just need a little bit more warm up, a little bit more foreplay. And pelvic floor physical therapy can genuinely be life-changing as well. I'm a huge proponent of that. So if you still feel like you are taking time, you're doing all the foreplay, you're using great lubricants, and you're still having some difficulty, it might be time to explore pelvic floor therapy. And then finally, the emotional piece. So our body image is changing because we're getting older. Relationship strain can come along with that. And there sometimes can be these unspoken shifts that happen. These are all real. So I want to make sure I emphasize that. These are real things that can happen in your relationship. So having open communication with your partner and self-compassion for yourself is just as important as any supplement or prescription. And I really want to emphasize this because here's the thing. Your partner's body is changing too. You're both aging. Things change as we age. We have to have some self-compassion and recognize that our bodies have gotten us to where we are today. We have to be grateful for them and recognize that things might look differently now than they did when you were in your 20s. And that's okay. It's about adapting and accepting this is me now. All right. And this is your partner now, too. So just open communication is really important during all of this. All right. Let's talk about reducing your toxic load. So your liver processes hormones. The more that we can reduce your overall toxic load, the better that your body can manage this transition. So again, we already talked about that declining estrogen reduces your natural detox capacity. So this becomes even more important as you move through perimenopause. Making simple swaps, okay? Using glass containers over plastic, organic where it counts. Again, we talked about the dirty dozen. Cleaning products that don't have synthetic fragrances, air fresheners, perfumes, body products. When and where you can and where it's feasible, try to eliminate some of those extra chemicals that are in your body. Filter your water. Address any mold that you might have in your immediate environment. And again, alcohol. We already talked about that one. I got ahead of myself. But that one, it does stress our liver. It disrupts sleep, raises cortisol. So it's worth, again, revisiting your relationship with alcohol during perimenopause. And then finally, adding daily breath work, 5 to 10 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing daily really helps to activate your lymphatic detox system and helps with nervous system regulation. So a thing to keep in mind is that your environment is either working for your hormones or against them. All right. Now let's talk about what can we do with some of this, where to start, because this has been a lot of information and I know that. So let's make it actionable. Don't try to change everything at once. Because this can feel like a lot. As I mentioned earlier, it can feel like a full-time job. You're like, I'm trying to track my protein and my fiber, and I'm trying to make sure I drink 900 gallons of water a day. Choose two things from this list and do them consistently this week. Or if two feels too much for you, choose one thing from this list. All right. So a morning anchor, we talked about that. Even taking 10 minutes before you grab your phone, scroll Facebook, check notifications. Take 10 minutes for stepping outside, getting the sun on your face, gratitude journal, meditating, just whatever you can do to help kind of set the tone for your day, not on your phone, especially because we all know, like recently, being on your phones can be very stressful. So if you're getting stressed out the moment you wake up from grabbing your phone, like that is setting the tone for your entire day. So try to take those 10 minutes to have stillness, gratitude, breath work, meditation, and again, stepping outside if at all possible, or just opening your blinds. I recognize sometimes it can be too cold to actually step outside, but opening your blinds and getting that sunlight on your face. Hydrate before you caffeinate. This is a big one. Drink 1 to 2 glasses of water with electrolytes before your coffee. Okay, before you have coffee, tea, energy drink, have 1 to 2 glasses of water. Ideally, add some electrolytes to that. Okay, this really can make a big shift in both your energy and mood that can be immediately noticeable throughout your day. Track something, fiber intake, protein intake, your heart rate variability. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. Like there are all kinds of wearables now, like iWatches can do HRV, like I wear an Aura ring. I also have a Garmin Vivo Smart that I use when working out. Pardon me. Um, Track your sleep. You can't optimize what you don't measure. So it doesn't have to be all of these. Choose one, track it somewhere. It doesn't have to be like with a fancy device. You can track in a notebook, you can track on your phone, whatever is easier for you, but just track something. Make one environmental swap, all right? Change out like containers in your kitchen, your water bottle, something. Change out one environmental item. And again, that walking after meals, just 10 minutes of walking after you've had a meal, it can be one of the most powerful tools you have for blood sugar regulation. Again, these are a great place to start. Choose one or two to implement this week and then screenshot this if you haven't yet. But one or two implement this week. Get doing those consistently. Then you can add one more, two more, and just go where you're suddenly, like not suddenly, sorry, you at some point are then doing all of these things, but it doesn't feel so big like you're trying to change everything at once. So just choose one or two. And I'd be interested, let me know in the chat which one or two items you think you're going to work on this week, because I know this can feel big, but sometimes just putting it down, putting it out there also can help us be accountable as well. So this is where we're starting. Again, screenshot it if you haven't screenshotted it yet. One to two of these this week, and then adding additional as you feel like you've done your first one to two consistently. Now, I'm so excited about this. I am introducing a brand new offering. And so if today resonated with you and you're really looking for ongoing support, I want to introduce you to my new offering, the Intimate Balance Collective. So this is a monthly membership community for perimenopause and intimacy wellness. Because here's what's happened. Over the years, of course, I've gotten tons of private messages and texts about people's intimate lives. But as I've transitioned into doing more perimenopause work, I've started to get a lot more of those messages about perimenopause symptoms and people asking for help for that. And I want to help everyone, trust me. But I'm also trying to live my empty nester life and enjoy like the beautiful Florida area that we live in now. So I simply don't have as much time to do that one-on-one that I used to be able to just kind of do on the fly. Plus, I'm trying to break my own technology habits and not be on technology as much. So I was like, okay, how can I help as many people at once? Especially because a lot of the issues, symptoms, problems, they're like a lot of people have the same ones. So I decided to do this collective. So I'm really excited about this because twice a month I'm going to do informative group coaching sessions, which will essentially be a webinar like this where I'll give, 15, 20 minutes of like education on a specific topic. And then people will have a chance to submit questions ahead of time. And then I will answer those questions as best as I can. And again, that way everybody's kind of benefiting. The webinars that we do, they will be recorded. People will have access to them. I've got a community that I have built on Circle. So I've got a resource library there that will house the videos. They've got links to various things. I've got recipe books there. It's still growing, but I've got it going there. And I want that private community too, so you guys can also help each other. Also, obviously, I still offer a lot of products. So collective members get a member-only product discount as well, and that stays good the entire time that you're a member. If you need additional support, collective members do get a reduced rate on one-on-one coaching as well. And this one I'm really excited about. This just got finalized earlier this week. I now have access to concierge health services. So one of the biggest thing I've seen people struggling with is like they either can't find a provider that will talk to them about hormones, test their hormones, give them HRT. Um, and so I have been able to partner now with a group that has licensed medical practitioners in all 50 states. And they are able to help procure prescriptions and lab testing for those who aren't able to get them otherwise. So this is a self-paced service, and obviously I'm not a prescriber. So it is based on clinical evaluation, but when and where appropriate, they will help you get prescriptions for HRT, GLP-1s, peptides, um, as well as various lab testing. So I'm really excited about that partnership as well. And that is a exclusive benefit to those who are collective members or who do private one-on-one coaching with me. So I will drop the link in the chat for accessing this membership. It is actually on my regular website, but I'm going to drop the link in the chat that gives you direct access to getting started with the collective. It will officially start, like it started now, but the 2 a month webinars will officially start in May, because I'm still getting everything in place. But there will be an additional informational webinar group coaching that happens in April. And then we'll get on the regular schedule after May. But just to give you a couple of ideas of topics that I'll be educating on that I'm really excited about: mental health and sexuality, mismatched libidos, hormone replacement therapy, and nervous system regulation. So I actually have a list of 40 different topics that I want to give additional information and education on. But those are just a few that those informational group coaching sessions will cover. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'll drop the link for that. And then, of course, if you are needing more personalized support, if you just really feel like you need more personal accountability, just more individualized work, I do offer individualized one-on-one coaching as well. So here's what I want to leave you guys with. The perimenopause transition is not something to just push through. It's an invitation to understand yourself and your body more deeply, to advocate for your own health, and to get the support that you truly deserve. You deserve to know what's happening in your body, and now hopefully you know more than you did an hour ago, right? Thank you so much for being here. And remember, you're not broken. You are becoming. You're ever changing.